researched about the Olympic Games. What games did they have? They had boxing, equestrian event, which included chariot racing and riding, pancration, pentathlon, which had 5 events to it, and it's discus, javelin, jump, running, and wrestling. And running and wrestling were also their own events. Boxing. Boxers fought without rounds until one man was knocked out or admitted he had been beaten. There was no rule against hitting an opponent while he was down. There was no such thing as weight classes. Opponents for a match were chosen randomly. Equestrian event. Chariot racing. There were 2-horse and 4-horse chariot races. Separate races for each, and there was also a race between carts pulled by a team of 2 mules. This course was 12 times around the stadium track, which equals to about 9 miles. Riding. There were separate races for full-grown horses and for foals. The riders rode without stirrups. Only the wealthy people could afford to pay for the training, equipment, and feed both the rider and the horse. Therefore, the owner received the olive wreath of victory instead of the rider. Pancration. It was a mix of boxing and wrestling. Punches were allowed even though the fighters did not wrap their hands. Rules included no biting and no gouging your opponent's eye, nose, or mouth with fingernails. Kicking your opponent in the stomach was perfectly legal. It had separate divisions for both men and boys. Pentathlon. 5-event combination of discus, javelin, jumping, running, and wrestling. Discus. The Greeks found the rhythm and precision of the athlete throwing the discus as important as his strength. The disc was made of stone, iron, bronze, or lead and was shaped of a flying saucer. The weight of the disc depended on the division of either men or boys. Javelin. The javelin was a man-high length of wood with either a sharpened end or an attached metal point. It had a place for the hurler's fingers attached to its center of gravity, which increased the precision and distance of the javelin's flight. Jump. The athletes used lead or stone jump weights shaped like the receivers to a telephone to increase their length. The weights were held in front of the athletes during the beginning of their jump and forcibly thrust behind his back and dropped during the landing to help his body go further. Jump weights also doubled as weightlifting equipment during training. Running. There were 4 types of races in Olympia. The slalom was the oldest event of the games. Runners sprinted for the one stage, which is 192 meters, the length of the stadium. The other races were 2-stage race, and it was the long distance, which ranged from 7 to 24 stages. The Greeks had one particular grueling event. There was also a 2 to 4 stage race by athletes in armor. The race was very useful in building speed and stamina the Greek men needed during their military service. The standard armor weighed around 50 to 60 pounds. Wrestling. Like today, the athlete needed to throw his opponent on the ground, landing on a hip, shoulder, or back for a fair fall. 3 throws were necessary to win a match. Biting and genital holds were illegal. Attacks like breaking your opponent's fingers were permitted. Who could compete? The only people that could compete in the Olympics were free men who spoke Greek. Where were the games held? The games were held in Olympia instead of moving around to a different area each time. Gods and Goddesses by Sierra Brown. The main gods and goddesses are made up of the families and children of the Titans and the Olympians. The main gods and goddesses of Greek mythology are Poseidon, the god of the sea, Hades, the god of the underworld, and Zeus, the god of the gods. Some of the other gods and goddesses include Aphrodite, the goddess of love, Apollo, the god of the sun, Artemis, the goddess of hunting, Athena, the goddess of wisdom, Demeter, the goddess of agriculture, and Hermes, the messenger of the gods. There are many more gods and goddesses, each in their own tales and lives. Each god and goddess plays a role in the Greek mythology and ancient stories passed down from generation to generation. Mythology. Myths. Some of the most famous myths include the creation II, the creation of man by Prometheus, Zeus's lovers, the birth of Athena, and the wanderings of Dionysus. Creatures. Some of the creatures include the Cyclops, giants, ash tree nymphs, Typhoeus, sirens, centaur, Medusa, gorgons, and Pegasus. Places. Some of the most famous places in Greek mythology would be Mount Olympus, the underworld, and Tartarus. Heroes. Some of the most famous heroes would be Perseus, Theseus, Atlanta, Hercules, Meleager, Achilles, Jason, and Odysseus. The Three Brothers. After overthrowing the Titans, Zeus, Poseidon, and Hades had to choose their rule. Zeus, choosing first, set the heavens, and in turn became the god of the gods, living and ruling in the heavens with a lavish and powerful lifestyle. Poseidon next chose, and became the god of the sea, with supreme rule over all sailors, sea life, and aquatic world. He lived in a grand castle on the seafloor made of coral, and drove a carriage pulled by seahorses. Last to choose was Hades, who was in turn stuck with the rule of the dead and their souls, becoming the god of the underworld. Hades lived in the dark and dreary world of the dead, and is most famous for his story of Persephone and the pomegranate seeds. Seen on the left is Zeus, the god of the gods, and on the right is Poseidon, the god of the sea.
PowerPoint by Caitlyn, Scheck, and Sierra Brown. Thanks for watching.